We now return to Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Opportunity Project, the radio show discussing honest truth about Illinois policy and politics. Here's AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan back with Joe Kaiser on this edition of Rising, and boy, what a moment this week. The courage of a politician whose career has ended to finally tell the truth and say things, frankly, that we've been saying on this show for years. On his way out the door, Rahm Emanuel, Tiny Dancer, addressing the city council this week. Apparently, there's some kind of pension problem in the city. He's just learned of this, and it's about damn time somebody do something.
Simply put, leaders in the past made commitments without the resources to back them up. And now, inevitably, the bill has come due.
Indeed. Boy, I wonder where he got that. Think about it, Emanuel continued. What kind of progressive, sustainable system guarantees retirees 3% annual compounded pay increases when inflation has been at basically zero? And current employees have at times been furloughed, laid off, or received 1% raises. There's nothing progressive about 3% compounded raises for retirees. Golly. Well, I agree vociferously because me and many, many others have been saying that about COLAs as an easy first step to bend the cost curve on unfunded pension liabilities for the better part of 2 decades. So we're happy to have Tiny Dancer on board, but not that happy.
I mean, I don't know whatever his motivation is. Obviously, he doesn't have an election coming up to worry about. I still welcome him coming to the table better late than never, because this is something that a state like Arizona has done to great success. Like you said, you've been talking about it for a while. Illinois Policy Institute's been talking about it for a while. Chicago Tribune editorial board just last week has written about it. It's a thing that, I mean, a lot of people have advocated for, but I welcome his voice because you have politicians like J.B. Pritzker who are on the record saying the exact opposite. And I think it's good whatever his motivations are to get that message out there.
He can come to the table, but he's got to sit at the kids' table.
That's fine.
Because after that big pronouncement and the talk of COLAs, then he wants to do what? Just focus on revenue. Legalize dope, casinos,
gas tax,
borrowing, gas tax. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Chicago Tribune editorial board member Kristen McQueary. Kristen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So your reaction to what Tiny Dancer had to say this week?
I mean, I sort of agree with Joe where when somebody finally comes around, even if they're late, you don't want to necessarily knock them. But at the same time, he's not saying anything that we haven't been saying for years. He's not actually saying anything that Democrats, when they passed that pension reform bill in 2013, they're already on record talking about those 3% compounded COLAs and how they're unsustainable. So I don't like giving him so much of a moment. What I do think he does is kind of readdress a subject that a lot of politicians have just been ignoring. He kind of softens the landscape for mayoral and aldermanic candidates in Chicago to talk more about the need to curb pension benefits and to do it through a constitutional amendment. And I also think if there's one way that this could actually get on the ballot, changing that pension clause, it's going to be through mayors, not just Rahm Emanuel, but mayors across the state who see these pension strangulation costs up close and who do have significant sway over their House and Senate members in Springfield. So if there is some movement that could be started, it just takes a 3/5 vote. I know that's a big hurdle, but a 3/5 vote to get it on the ballot. You don't need Pritzker, and you don't need aldermanic candidates. You need lawmakers.
Yeah,
so
but
maybe it opens the door.
But I also, I don't think we should forget the great wisdom of Groucho Marx. It seems perfectly appropriate to comment on Chicago and Illinois. The politicians create problems and they misapply the remedies. So this is a problem created by Chicago Democrats with complicity from a lot of Republicans over the years. And then the remedy is, okay, fine on the compounding COLA. Of course, I agree with that. But the other solutions are all about revenue, whether it's new taxes or new borrowing.
I know. I mean, it's just, I don't think it's possible for Democrats to even introduce something that makes sense without weighing it down with all these proposals that don't make sense. So yes, he's talking about putting a constitutional amendment on the ballot. That is probably the least likely thing to happen. The most likely thing to happen in this state, now run completely by Democrats, is going to be all of the other things you talked about. Legalizing marijuana, a casino for Chicago and possibly 5 other locations, a hike in the gas tax, and a graduated income tax. You know, they're happy to put things on the ballot to unlock the flat tax and then block the ability of voters to also try to control costs on pensions.
What if we gave pensioners their pension payments in casino chips? I could maybe get on board with that.
That's a fantastic idea. We should maybe, and also maybe some weed gummy bears or
yes, in kind. Yes.
Right. We could sort of put this together in just a larger package. We're just not thinking outside the box enough here.
Kristen, of those things that you mentioned, legalized marijuana, casinos, gas tax, which of those policy proposals do you think are the most likely to come to fruition?
I mean, I can never say casinos. It's almost a joke that we even talk about it because they introduce these bills and then they collapse onto themselves because they're too big and because there are a lot of people in Springfield who make money off of the status quo and off of this kind of ramp up of the bill and then it falls apart. A lot of people make money off of that sort of dysfunction. So I would set that one aside. Legalize marijuana. Almost all of the candidates running for the House and Senate supported it as long as you have provisions in place to test drivers and keep it away from kids. So I would say that's probably going to be one of the first proposals that you see actually get to Governor Pritzker's desk.
Are there baby steps we can take to more casinos? I mean, obviously we want more gambling, got to have more gambling. So maybe like legalizing cockfighting before we get the casino in Chicago. It's kind of a stepping stone.
We could, I mean, we never really figured out the sports betting aspects. We could do that. We could do slots at airports. We've never really done that. And why limit it to airports? Maybe like nursing homes, methadone clinics,
schools,
kind of
schools. You got to you can put slot machines in schools,
churches.
Yeah, churches.
I mean, the possibilities are really endless.
Yeah, I don't know if the Methodists will like that, but I mean, it's certainly something we got to think about. So, with respect to the policy agenda that is going to be featured next month when Spalding is inaugurated, what do you think we're going to see out of the gate from him?
I mean, he says that his top priority is going to be see, I can't even say it without laughing, a truly balanced budget.
Yeah.
And he does have to kind of turn that around quickly, as you know. He is aware of all the tricks that have been used in the past. You know, we're going to sell the Thompson Center like 5 more times. And he has sort of promised to not do that. So I think we will see him come out with a financial plan that includes taking steps toward legalizing marijuana, and he'll throw casinos in there, even though that is something that won't get off the ground, even if it does get approved for many years. I don't think you're going to see him talking about a graduated income tax right out of the gate. I almost think that's something maybe in year 2, but I think you will see them kind of grasping at other revenue sources and a capital bill. You know, we got to keep all the unionized workers, got to give them something to do. So that'll be a quick one too.
And then with the political landscape in Springfield right now, how confident are you that, you talked about this a little bit at the outset, but that a constitutional amendment to the pension clause could be a thing we see, whether it's, 2 years from now, 4 years from now? How confident are you that could be coming down the road?
I mean, not really confident at all, actually, but if it is something that would come to fruition like Arizona did, but I mean, they had organized labor on board. Organized labor understood that this was the only way to save the pension system. We've been preaching that for years. It doesn't seem to resonate with organized labor here. But it is something, like I'm saying, if you can actually start a movement of local leaders that's nonpartisan, just mayors who do hold influence over their elected officials, and we might actually see more Harveys where municipalities simply cannot make those pension payments into their local funds, and that might be something that sort of breaks the logjam and moves lawmakers more toward changing the clause. But I think you're going to see like borrowing and reamortization of the debt and kicking out the payment schedule.
Yes, I know.
all of the reasons we got here,
delightful.
they're just going to continue to recycle those because they're easier.
What about this Dorothy Brown? She's a thought leader in Chicago. She's had some ideas for the city that I think could be transmitted to the suburbs as well. A lottery that's just for Chicago, so we could have lotteries in all 1,200 plus municipalities, just lotteries at the local level. Because again, this gambling is obviously the answer to all of our problems. So that's one idea, and then the other thing is like selling naming rights, like the Quicken Loans airport out by out instead of the Battle of Midway. Who cares about the Battle of Midway? Or Butch O'Hare. I mean, replace I don't know, like Women's Workout World could sponsor the airport out Rosemont Way or something like this. And so it's like corporate sponsorships for all the public sector assets, and then local lotteries is what I'm thinking.
Oh, that's great. I didn't realize she had put forth some proposals along those lines, but I shouldn't be surprised because she was the originator of Jeans Day, where she raised money within her own office by charging people who wanted to dress more casually. So I don't know, maybe that could be something that we scale across the city. That if you want to wear jeans on Fridays, you have to pay a small tax. That's just an idea. Just throwing it out there.
To be fair, that was really Lumberg's idea in Office Space, and she kind of just enhanced it. So he really started that. Yeah. But it's good. See, those are the kind of policy discussions that we need to have to really turn the page for the city and the state, and that's why Kristen McQueary, the Chicago Tribune editorial board, we're pleased to have you on Illinois Rising again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.